Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Dying Time is here. That's right. We're talking about 1984's Firestarter on Kill by Kill. Well, greetings and salutations, Internet. It's your old pal, Patrick Hamilton, coming to you once again from the shop. This is the Kill by Kill podcast, where we're dedicated to celebrating the least discussed component of any horror film, the characters. And of course, we're going to unpack all the not particularly gory details of 1984's Stephen King's The Firestarter, in the hopes that a burned up corpse's untimely end is just the beginning of the jokes we might make at their expense. And as always, there's only one person I trust to make sure that the lights come on. Why won't the lights come on? The one, the only, Gina Radcliffe. How are you doing today, Gina?
Yeah, we really need one of the We Hate Movies guys.
Right, to George C. Scott this joint.
Do one of their, like, if you are a fan of We Hate Movies, I strongly recommend you listen to their Exorcist 3 episode.
Oh, yeah.
Because all four of them do George C. Scott impersonations that have me crying.
It is a true nexus point of fantastic George C. Scott.
They all sound like they're in the middle of passing a kidney stone. As is George C. Scott.
Yes. You know what? That's kind of what he does at a certain point. And what he doesn't do often, but he definitely does here, is approximate an indigenous person.
An indigenous person about 30 years younger.
Right.
Than George C. Scott is.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's just come right out here and get it. Let's say you have one of those soft spots for a movie, and let's say it's 1984's Firestarter, which in many respects is perfectly acceptable. And you just love it. You love Drew Barrymore. You love the end. You love the middle. You love the beginning. It doesn't matter to me. This show might not be your episode because I, for one, find this particular rendition of this story, which I also think is its fine at best novel, is in particularly disconnected and kind of terrible. How about you, Gina?
You know, it's a solid. It's fine for me. It sounds like I think I liked the book more than you did, but I actually find the father-daughter on the run story to be the more compelling and interesting part. Yeah. Than all of the stuff with the shop and all. Like I just think that, you know, them just kind of, you know, surviving on this, you know, this little, you know, ragtag, you know, team. I think that's where the heart of this. Well, obviously, the rest of the heart of the story is, but I don't think that's the part that Stephen King was more interested in.
Absolutely, he's the most interested in that of all the elements. I mean, I think this is. We'll get into it a little bit later, but I think one of his major peccadillos, especially early in his career, is really wrestling with the idea of having children and both exploring the best parts of fatherhood and perhaps the fears that he has of his own. Certainly The Shining, we're going to be talking about that all throughout talking about The Shining. But here's another version of it. You kind of get four different versions of bad to good dads throughout this. And, you know, Andy's wrestling with a lot. I get behind that component. I think it does work best in the book. I did try to watch the remake the other night because it was right there on Peacock and I was done watching the first Firestarter. I tried and the internet said, no more Firestarter for you. It just stopped.
I have not attempted to watch that or the I guess it's a sequel.
Oh, Firestarter Rekindled?
Yeah.
Yeah. Once upon a time on SyFy, I did watch that. I don't remember anything about it other than the ingenue from Wet Hot American Summer is in it. That's the only thing I can recount.
And Malcolm McDowell, I think.
Well, someone signed a check, and that's when Malcolm McDowell shows up. You pay the price. Malcolm McDowell says yes.
Even more miscast than George C. Scott, one could say.
Perhaps the most miscast. Yeah. Oh, he's playing Rainbird in that?
Oh, is
somehow?
he? Maybe not. I don't know. But yeah, but I think maybe I'm confusing him with the remake. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. So, yeah, I do like the book more than this. And that's probably true for a lot of King stories in that the interiority of these people is really explored in a novel. And obviously you can't do that in a movie. But I think it's really important here to get into Andy's head and his fears and the dread he feels when he knows that he's kind of teaching his daughter at a certain point, you're going to have to use this gift against other people because we're not being given any other choice. And that is a rich text to draw from. But in my opinion, this movie does very little to explore that.
Yeah, no, I because as you say, a lot of it is internal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah. I mean, a lot of it has to, addresses Andy's guilt over submitting to these like experiments that, in turn, turned him and gave him telepathy, I guess.
Yeah, a form of telepathy that allows him to push.
Yeah, it's
mind control.
Yeah, it's a form of mind control.
Yeah,
I believe. Although the movie, like Vicky, is barely a person in the movie.
Yeah, wow.
She figures much more prominently. I mean, again, mostly in flashback, but still, I think she develops telekinesis, if I'm not mistaken, and their daughter develops pyrokinesis. Mm-hmm. And this was all because, they did some sort of, hippy dippy drug testing.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the elements of this that I kind of enjoy, because of the elements that we've discussed about Stephen King so far, the big one that we've discussed most is this town is going to hell. But he has a couple other modes, like just off the top of my head. This common thing is cursed, actually, is a big one for him. And this alternate reality is killing me.
Also, never trust the man.
Right. And this is a big never trust the man mode for him. These modes aren't generally exclusive to one another. Often they're overlapping with one another within a single narrative. But never trust the man is a big one here. And it's also combined with something that we discussed with Carrie and the Dead Zone. This person can do something they shouldn't. And here we're getting a different shade of that. And I think one of the driving forces of it, I think, is an interesting mode. And it works a little bit better in the book than it does in the movie, because he's really into the 70s conspiracy industrial complex when he's writing a lot of his early novels. Carrie is told in an epistolatory structure that includes testimony and witness statements that are reminiscent of the Warren Commission that examined the events of the JFK examination, the core conspiracy theory that has driven the subgenre since 1963. And it makes sense that an event like that would loom very large in both American culture and find purchase in King's work. To wit, The Dead Zone definitely examines that as one of his main goals, was to get in the head of someone who might attempt to take the life of a politician. Johnny Smith's visions lead him to an unthinkable act, an assassination attempt on a populist political candidate who Johnny sees as launching an unprovoked nuclear war in the heat of religious mania once he reaches the Oval Office. I mean, I can't imagine that sort of thing happening in real life.
Not at all.
Not at all. Firestarter is the unlikely continuation of that subgenre. And I say unlikely not because I find it odd King went in this direction, but rather because King takes on a different flavor of government conspiracy, and that is the MK Ultra program. Gina, what do you know about MK Ultra?
I just know it was some sort of government testing, secret government testing on citizens.
It absolutely was, starting in the early 1950s and ending in the mid 1970s. The CIA's Office of Scientific Intelligence initiated a series of experiments and programs aimed at unlocking and harnessing the supernatural potential of the human mind. And I know that sounds kind of crazy, but you do have to remember that just 1 decade previous to that, a government program unlocked the ability to smash the atom and cause explosions that could crack the world in half. So you just never know what you have the potential to do until you give it the good old college try. And I know I'm being glib about this, but the military-industrial complex itself is built on a simple premise of fuck around and find out. So if these people heard a rumor that Nikita Khrushchev locked a bunch of people in a bunker in Leningrad and shot them up with drug cocktails in the hopes that they would become psychic warriors able to control the minds of an American president, well, at least the least we could do is just give it a whirl ourselves.
I mean, it ain't any crazier than Jewish space lasers or anything like that.
Right. Well, that's the thing. Of course, this kind of thinking first happened inside of Nazi concentration camps. We know the place where all great ideas start. So even when I wrote that joke, I wanted to jump out of a window and land on a fence.
Yeah, that's a really thanked Hitler moment.
Yeah, it's a real thanked Hitler moment. It's 2 kids in the hall we can still enjoy. All right. We're 4 out of 5, baby. So in the 1980 novel and the 84 film, our story begins with 2 college students, Andy, who's the dad, Vicky, who's the mom, who participate in an experiment being conducted by a division of the CIA called, quote, The Shop. The Shop shoots up a room full of young people with what they call Lot 6, a mix of drugs and chemicals they hope will unlock psychic and telepathic potential. But everyone else in the room goes insane. But for Andy and Vicky, call Rihanna because they found love in a hopeless place, Gina.
Yeah, I don't know if I call it a meet cute, but
they meet cute. Everyone else is meeting their fingertips to their eyeballs.
I was gonna say everybody else is just ripping their eyeballs out. I mean, you might have thought you've been on a date that was going so badly you wanted to just scratch your own eyes out, but like that actually happened.
Yes, and in the book, it's much more grisly, and for whatever reason they don't want to do that here. I can't. I think this is rated R. So
well, yeah, that is the biggest issue for me with this movie is I constantly forget this is a John Carpenter movie,
or was going to be a John Carpenter movie.
Yes.
Yeah. That is an interesting component of its production, and it's interesting to think about of what might have been if this was going to be John Carpenter. But to set this up, we're going to have to talk about somebody else. And for those growing tired of our ongoing ill-suited hate campaign of Craig Wasson, don't worry, because we still have the love/hate relationship between King Properties and the man who made the monkey die and people cry, Dino De Laurentiis. That's right. He is at the center of this as well. Firestarter is a co-production between Universal and Dino, and the first pick to adapt this property was John Carpenter. As the thing was being developed, Universal tapped Carpenter to make Firestarter's follow-up, but when the studio began to doubt the thing's commercial appeal, they pulled the plug as quickly as possible. They soured on Carpenter and Thing screenwriter Bill Lancaster's version of the film. And frankly, I am okay with that, as Carpenter's Christine is a much better film and adaptation all around.
Oh yeah. There's definitely a what could have been element.
Yes. But I do feel like I I have not read that script. I have no idea how to access it. It would be interesting to dig in and see what it might have been. Obviously, the soundtrack would have been a lot better, because I think the soundtrack here by Tangerine Dream is wishy plus washy equals music. There is a couple themes that I enjoy, but for the most part, I find it inessential and really less than commanding. But again, Carpenter goes straight into Christine, and I think makes something out of that book that I don't think a lot of people would have been able to do or had the temerity to do. He changed just enough of that for the medium he was adapting it into to make it really pump blood. And here, I don't think we get that. Now, Universal and Dino decided to take a different route by recruiting journeyman director Mark L. Lester, someone whose work, believe it or not, we have discussed at length on this show, Gina, as his follow-up to this film was 1985's Commando.
Is that right? Okay.
Is that right? Yes.
That is an upgrade from this, I will say.
I wholeheartedly agree. I think it's something way more comfortable for him. It weirdly enough also has that I have to rescue my daughter sub-theme, but it doesn't ever try to worry about making that relationship feel real. It's just all, here's a bit of ice cream on your nose and let me hoist you on my shoulders and let me come out of the woods with a giant log that represents my penis. You know, filmmaking. But Lester lensed a bunch of like odor programmers from the 70s, movies like Truck Stop Woman and Bobby Joe and the Outlaw. And then in 77, he directs a pretty interesting movie called Stunts, which is a thriller involving stunt mishaps on the set of a movie that turn out to be murder. And that's pretty good. If you find that somewhere, watch it. This is followed up by 1979's Roller Boogie, starring Linda Blair, Lycra, and Cocaine.
Have you ever seen Roller Boogie?
I have seen Roller Boogie once upon a time. I can't say that I've revisited it, but this is a great reminder for everyone that our top listened to episode on YouTube is Skate Town USA.
And it is a wonderful episode.
It really is. But I do think maybe one of these days we should do Roller Boogie. And for no other reason, the audience there demands it. I do have to say, YouTube wants a special kind of movie that our regular listening audience does not, because the newest one to climb up the ranks is the New Kids, which our listenership was like, the fuck is that? And YouTube was like, bring me more of this. I do not know why. I don't quite understand it. But just like in the last 3 weeks, it's done thousands of listens. So I don't know what to say about that.
I'm not gonna try to question it. I'm just going to welcome it.
Yes. It was another 3 years before he returned with Class of 1984. The Death Wish meets Blackboard Jungle riff that's as mean as it is dumb fun, and has a couple scenes I like and is really angry. There's a lot of it's also kind of rapey, and that's the part I really don't care for. And it doesn't make a lot of sense, but I think again, at least it has a theme and it's going for it. And I don't know that this movie rises to that particular level of dedication or desire.
It is a very rote adaptation.
Yes.
Like it has all of the beats of the plot, but it has all of the salient characters minus Vicky, who's literally in it for about 11 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Even though in the book her presence kind of hangs over everything, as one might expect. A widower, in the case of a widower and his child on the run.
Yeah.
It's just, but it's ultimately very hollow, I think.
Yes. I think that's what gets to me is it's detached from real emotion. It's just kind of detached from the beating heart of the novel.
Like one of the most interesting things I thought about the book is that, and I think the movie barely touches on it. And again, it may be simply because most of it is internalized. Mm-hmm. And it's that as Andy uses his powers, it is taking a physical toll on him.
Correct.
Like it is basically causing mini strokes and as they're forcing him to be their sort of, test monkey, it's turning his brain to mush.
Right.
He's basically almost useless by the he's going to die either way. Now
it's a suicide mission for him.
Right. In both the book and the movie, he ends up just getting shot to death, but his brain's about to blow like an old tire in any minute anyway. And I think that aspect of it is far more interesting than, it's like, evil government, cracking down on the X-Men kind of plot.
Right. Yeah. And I don't think the movie even really focuses that much on that component of it to make that compelling either. It just kind of has a checklist and ticks off these things. Like, isn't this what you wanted when you read the book? And you're kind of like, I guess.
You wanted to see a little girl blow shit up, right? And it's like, well, yeah, sure. But there's like, she has a reason for doing that.
I would like to care about her a little bit.
You buy a pair of socks, that's 2 socks. You buy a pair of Bombas socks, that's 4 socks. Because one purchased is one donated. Socks are the #1 most requested clothing item in homeless shelters. So when you buy a pair of super comfortable Bombas socks, you're also donating a pair. Bombas customers have powered over 150 million donations. So Bombas would like to thank you 150 million times. But we only have like 30 seconds. Go to bombas.com and use code AUDIO for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com and use code AUDIO at checkout.
What I'm going to tell you next might explain some things, because here's the origin story for how the director Lester was recruited. So when Carpenter's vision of Firestarter is halted by Dino and Universal, Lester tells this story of how he's approached to take the director's chair. Quote, "I was at the Midsummer Night's Dream Party at the Playboy Mansion.
Oh boy. Always the way the best stories start.
Yes. Sitting in my pajamas next to Joel Silver, who is a uni exec at the time. He said he had this script and maybe I could direct it. And I said, fabulous. Can I read the script? And Silver replied, no, if you read the script, you're not going to want to do the movie. What a pitch.
The movie isn't that bad.
It isn't that bad, but I do think there is a feeling within both Universal and Dino that this is becoming less and less essential. Like, they buy it because it's hot, because what King is doing is selling books, and the adaptations are definitely getting picked up by other studios, and you want to be in on that game, and horror is doing numbers at the box office, and it seems like a right thing. And then you add to that frankly, my guess as to why they wanted so desperately to do this is that they were very high on Drew Barrymore post E.T. the Extraterrestrial. And they needed a vehicle with her because they had an in. And she, her first big movie is with Universal. And so if they can find a way to get her back on screen while she's still a little kid and make her the center point, and it's sci-fi fantastical in nature, well, that seems to be a repeatable formula. But I just don't know that this is right for her, or that the material is right for audiences at this point, or that it's in the shape that it needs to be to thrill or engage anybody. The whole affair feels perfunctory, and we're just like waiting for the moment Charlie lets loose and cooks the whole damn lot of the shop.
Yeah, and again, I do actually think I think this is the book itself is mid-tier King.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of, and of course my fallback solution for a King adaptation that doesn't work is, well, maybe if they tried it on a limited series. and I suggest that to you. He said, well, that's basically the Institute.
Yeah, I do feel like that's the Institute, is him trying a long form version of Firestarter. And that's also one that, for me, unfortunately doesn't fire.
But I think one of the spookiest sequences in Firestarter is, and you get a little bit of it, but George C. Scott, who's so badly miscast in this role.
Yeah.
He's playing an indigenous Vietnam veteran. Now, which means that if this is, let's assume it, I mean, I think the book is like 79 or 80, even if the movie took place in 1984, if you're a Vietnam veteran, you are at the oldest, maybe 40.
Right.
And so this is a character who's probably in his 30s. And again, is indigenous, played by 60-year-old George C. Scott with a ponytail.
Right.
Fuck off.
Come on.
But like there is a whole sequence in which the power goes out at this in this facility where they have Andy and Charlie held captive and separated from each other. Yeah. And Rainbird uses that opportunity to insinuate himself, into her, because as the book heavily suggests, he wants to molest her.
Yes.
And the movie is very reluctant to go there. And I was like, no, you can make him, this grotesque, monstrous villain, because that's what he is.
Yes. And I don't know.
He is a little bit in love with her.
Yeah. And listen, it's not like I want to deeply, really bathe in the story of a, child predator. But like you said, he is the villain. He's a trauma bonding, emotional manipulator.
You've got to go into the darkness of the story. You've got to go into this aspect that Andy has this power that at first blush you would think, wow, that sounds like fun. I'd like to be able to make people go temporarily blind or hurt themselves or do something stupid. It's like, yeah, until it starts turning your brain to mush.
Yes.
Over a period of less than a decade, apparently.
Right. And, as a result of that, like, he pays a price with every usage, whereas Charlie's generation of this seems to have gotten past that, where she does have to hone her skill, but it does not cause the damage to her body that it does to Andy and Vicky. We never find anything about, at least in this version. I will say, Heather Locklear had been on TV for quite a while at this point, on both TJ Hooker and Dynasty. And I don't remember a lot about my first viewings of TJ Hooker. It seemed fine at the time, but it really does take until Melrose Place before she gets any real opportunity to actually shine on camera by being mean. Like, that unlocks a level for her that's like, oh, we didn't know she had that gear. Of course she had that gear. Every role she had been in up until this point was to be pleasant looking, full stop.
Right.
And in this movie, she has one of those MST3K blink moments, and they're like, oh, what is going on? Well, I know you're on drugs, but this is very bad. This is ungood. And I can't say that David Keith is all that much better. He just gets more opportunities at bat than she does. And I think the coolest part about that Lot 6 sequence, both in the book and I assume in any parts of any of the movies, is that their connection to one another is what allows them to survive that process. Everyone else gets paranoid, worried, and fearful, and it turns their minds inside out. And they just are in each other's heads having the best trip in the world. And that's why they survive. And the shop, of course, learns nothing from this. Like, they should be having love-in orgies with this drug. And instead they're like, let's just inject more college students.
We need to be able to send mine torpedoes.
Right. Exactly. I will also say this, and we try not to judge people's looks on the show, but I would say, as a general note, people aren't allowed to look this bad in a major motion picture anymore. They're not allowed to look this greasy, this unpowdered, this sweaty.
Well, yeah, weird. because of HD.
Yes.
I mean, I miss it. Are you talking about David Keith specifically, or
David Keith is a big part of it? But I'll be honest with you, just in general, like, all of the shop minions also look like they just went to a Hardee's for lunch and it didn't go well.
I mean, I always like David Keith as an actor because he always looks like someone you would see, like, you ask if you want to get your oil checked at the gas station.
Sure, yeah. He
just has that regular guy look, and I think
he is handsome. He's legit handsome.
Like, you want that for this character, whereas like in the remake, you had fucking Zac Efron.
Oh my god, and his head looks like a thumb. With the beard painted on it.
When I think ordinary, suburban dad on the run, I think Zac fucking Efron.
And Zac fucking Efron should be allowed to stretch and everything. But just in the 10 minutes I watched, I didn't see a lot of stretching. I might be proven wrong. I might be firing off without seeing it all. And that was a shame on me. But
and by the way, the Firestarter sequel,
yes,
Malcolm McDowell is in fact playing a thought to be dead John Rainbird.
How did he survive being exploded real good?
I don't know. I've never seen it.
Oh my god. Well, look for that soon on Patreon. I don't know. I don't know how many versions of Firestarter I can genuinely take. But in respect to this film's take on both Andy and Vicky, their survival of the Lot 6 introduction to their system, in the book at least, allows Vicky to have mild psychic viewing capabilities, whereas Andy can push people with his mind, but the cost is pretty significant on the physical end. Sometimes it's a nosebleed. Sometimes it's a migraine. Sometimes he's out for a week. So obviously here, the biggest threat is that he's constantly being taxed to use this ability to try to get away from the shop. And every time he does, like, a little bit of him, forgets how to ride a bike.
Right, exactly.
King puts forth the idea, as I mentioned before, that Andy and Vicky's attraction to one another during the process is what saves them from the terrible effects of Lot 6's introduction. But they now carry that as part of their genes, and Charlie turns out to be a pyrokinetic with the ability to generate and manipulate fire. The shop monitors the family and Charlie as she grows. In an attempt to snatch her, they end up killing Vicky and sending Andy and his daughter on the run. And here's where we hit another little road bump for me when it comes to the movie. It plays a little coy with the whole "I killed mom." And honestly, I know why it's doing it, because you're eventually going to get the dream reveal that the shop did it only in an attempt to kidnap Charlie. But also, when your kid says that and you know it's not true, you don't go, "Oh, no. You're like, that's not true," is the thing that should come out of your fucking mouth at some point.
Yeah, you would think that, yes.
What plays out in the book into a muted degree in the movie is a struggle for Andy to, I think, and this is one of the more compelling components of it, is that Andy needs to lay some form of parenting ground rules for Charlie as she gains more and more pyrokinetic powers. That is harder and harder for him to do because his brain is unreliable. He's constantly oversick or migrained or just out of it. And then at a certain point, he's just addicted to drugs. And at this point, he's so washed up, the shop themselves give up on him. And it's that point where they're like, he's kind of useless, that he actually gains the wherewithal to kick the habit and try to get back his pushing power.
Yeah, and that's a very fascinating well to draw from.
Absolutely.
You know, particularly considering King's own well-documented issues with substance abuse.
Absolutely.
Plus, you have, you know, the concept of maybe a parent with a chronic illness or a disability who worries about how it affects their ability to be a good parent, or even to a certain extent, a mental illness like depression or something like that. And just the movie just does nothing with it. Yeah. But it hints that the pushing hurts him, but that's about all it does.
Yes. And it also pushes the idea that it squeeze either side of his head real hard to make it work, which I think someone should have said, can we come up with a slightly less goofy way of conveying this?
It's like, I don't know, can we just do a throbbing vein like the Fury or something?
Well, now we're into a real discussion, Gina, because sooner or later we're going to have to confront this. Now, I will grant everybody here that I'm one of the world's leading the Fury apologists, right? Is the Fury truly great? In my mind, yes. Is the Fury flawed? Absolutely. But in terms of conveying this type of story, I would say it is far and away better than Firestarter. And I have not read that novel. I've always wanted to. I'm always on the hunt for it. And I know it's pretty different with a lot of different backstory as to why this is happening and whatnot. But if we were just to compare basic stories movie v movie, I feel like the Fury does so much more of both the emotional heavy lifting and making the idea of these psychic powers infinitely more compelling to watch.
Yeah, I totally agree. And they are very, on the most basic levels, they're very similar.
Yes.
You know, they're the story of a parent-child relationship. There are stories about how these incredible powers ultimately dehumanize someone. Being a sort of superhuman, ultimately makes you perceived as a monster.
Yeah.
And but I don't know. It's very, Firestarter is very sterile.
Yes.
Like you don't really, here's a father and daughter. Now care about them.
Right. For whatever reason.
Why should I care about them? Because there's a cute little girl and her nice dad. Well, okay, I guess that's a good start.
But it's very surface level that, here's this terrible situation. You should feel bad for them. Okay. But I'd also like to know who Charlie is as a character. And aside from the fact that her hair blow real good when she's thinking about fire and she loves horses, there's not much to her. Obviously, she feels guilt for her mom and cares very deeply for her dad. These are all believable things, but we don't really know who she is. You have Drew Barrymore at the height of her child powers, and they don't really know how to make that come alive. David Keith.
I think this is a typical thing that we run into this a lot. I don't think it's so much a problem with the actors.
No,
I think that they are they are doing what they can with what they have, which unfortunately is not much.
Right. And I don't know if it was Dino De Laurentiis or Universal who really pushed this into the movie's called Firestarter. So really, the thing we have to do is start fires, which is one of the things that early King adaptations, if not in the hands of somebody who really understands how to tell a story, they often become these very rote, slight examinations of the material.
Well, I think that comes down to, like, I feel it's almost I don't want to say it's a disrespect for the source material. I think it is a very surface approach to the source material, where they just look at this as a very straightforward story about, here's a little girl that can set fire to their mind, and there are some bad guys that are chasing after her, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like Andy's story about, his abilities, what they do to them. That's like, no, that's not really relevant to the main plot. No, it kind of is.
It really is.
I mean, but like, I mean, if you're talking about, can you cut that part out of the movie and still have, an hour and 40 minutes of movie? Sure you can. Is it going to be very interesting? Well, no, not really.
Yeah. It just doesn't dig that deeply into it, in much the same way of like The Shining and Cujo, which we've yet to discuss, but we'll obviously get to. They're very much horror tinged discussions on the fear of losing a child and the fear of being a bad parent. And Firestarter plays on variations of that theme, but it just, as you said, is very surface level. And as a result, I feel a distance between myself and the characters. Like Andy's obviously the most direct king analog. His gift has a massive cost. His ability to push people, or in King's case, manipulate people's emotions with your words, result in health problems, massive migraines that take him off the board for hours and sometimes day at a time, and then eventually resorting to alcohol and drugs to recover from those push sessions. So yes, it's not a one-to-one, but it is this thing that he is examining over and over again because he has young children. And I think that's on everyone's mind. So that makes a lot of sense. For the first part of the book and the movie, Andy's goal is to keep Charlie safe. Any parent or even someone who has seen children and parents would understand that compulsion. So he's trying to keep them out of the hands of the shop and to instill some level of moral restraint in Charlie when it comes to using her powers, which is hard to do with younger kids because there's that whole, and I'm sure you're going to know what I'm talking about, big emotions, big feelings component to small children, where it just, the thing they want is what they want, and they don't quite understand that isn't the biggest problem in the world in that second. Of course they don't. They're small children. God. But I think the other component that makes the book more fascinating here, you see it, but they don't really talk about it, is that Andy's ability to push people is obviously morally dubious. And he's at least justified to a degree that he's trying to keep Charlie out of the hands of the shop, who are obviously corrupt, obviously don't care about human beings and will undoubtedly use her for very, very bad things. So that requires him to act shady. So the central quandary here becomes from Charlie learning to manipulate people and systems at the feet as someone abusing his power to avoid her becoming more destructive and from her being further abused. So at its heart, it's like a variation of The Shining's fatherhood themes, with tragedy and a redemption arc for a father at the last second who's nearly helpless in the sway of addiction and hopelessness before finding a brief but important moment to think better of his family and himself. Not so much the movie, but the book at least.
Bombas makes the most comfortable socks, underwear, and T-shirts.
Warning, Bombas are so absurdly comfortable you may throw out all your other clothes.
Sorry, do we legally have to say that?
No, this is just how I talk, and I really love my Bombas.
They do feel that good. And they do good, too. One item purchased equals one item donated.
To feel good and do good, go to bombas.com and use code AUDIO for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com and use code AUDIO at checkout.
I'm reading this the plot description of this remake of Firestarter, and like my jaw keeps like just opening wider and wider and wider. Like they changed a lot of stuff, and not for the better.
Oh boy! Well, maybe that's something we cover as a commentary on the Patreon rather than a full-blown episode. I don't know.
I was gonna say, I think maybe we could just do it as a regular Patreon. I don't know if I can sit through this whole thing.
Now, another version of fatherhood here is Irv, who is emotionally magical as opposed to Dick Halloran's Shine. But even if he doesn't possess a single supernatural power beyond basic decency, it is something he tends to radiate. Like, obviously, Andy and Charlie set off alarm bells for him, but not the kind of alarm bells where he calls the police behind their back, but sort of like, hey, are you two all white? Are you on the run for reasons that I can excuse? Sort of deal.
Now, see, I feel like in the book he is more of a don't trust the man.
Yeah,
like this libertarian farmer whose
son died in the war, if I'm remembering that correctly.
Right. Yeah.
He couldn't have children, but there's some sort of backstory of
like a nephew. It was like a nephew or something like that. But it was it was basically as long as you don't bother me, I'm not bothering you.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna take your word for it and keep an eye out because I know what these government types can be like.
Yes. So it doesn't take much to push him into being, a very decent presenting individual. It helps that it's Art Carney, who I don't think ever, at least to my knowledge, never had a role where he was nefarious, really. And when he sees this large group of middle-aged men in the worst suits that were ever, created chemically, come to rip Charlie out of the hands of our father, like he can read the tea leaves. It's not really that hard. Even though he's hurt, like he never holds it against Andy or Charlie. And he also kind of shows Andy that he'll have to make some sort of personal sacrifice if he truly wants to rid Charlie of the shop's corrupting influence. So he plays a role there. But I also what I like about the role in the movie is it's played by Art Carney and it kind of stops and starts there.
Right.
Whereas Rainbird, listen, I love George C. Scott. I really, really do. But as we said several times, so we won't really go into this anymore, but Jesus fucking Christ. He is wrong for this role.
He is so very wrong for this role. Like the only reason in the book that Charlie is scared of him is because I think he's wearing an eye patch or he's scarred or something like that.
Yes.
But he is very gentle towards her.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so creepy. I'm saying? Now I will say at least the best you can say is at least in the remake, they do cast an actual indigenous actor to play him.
Who's a great actor. Yeah.
But think of Zahn McClarnon. Think of how good he would have been in this role like this. Yeah. He's in the book, he's pretty straightforward that he's in love with her and wants to possess her as and whatever you want to, whatever interpretation you want to make of that, that's probably what he means.
Right. I mean, the book also has that sort of early, sort of very casual, cultural racism of he wants to possess her power in the other life. And you're kind of like, Jesus fucking Christ. That's some bullshit.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure why he needs to be indigenous.
I really don't know. Because if you're not
I'm pretty sure, a fascination with fire crosses all races and creeds.
And that, I think, would be a much more interesting motivational factor of someone who is a firebug at heart.
Right. I feel like, if you just ran into someone and they said, oh, hey, I can set fires with my mind, anybody would be like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, right.
Can I see?
Yeah.
I wish I could do that.
That sounds awesome. I have some targets for you. If
I have a list.
I have a list. Start here. I'm not going to give the address, but you're all thinking it in your mind. But
I will pay your bus fare.
Right. Listen, I will get you there on Southwest. And here you also get the impression that, like a vampire, he is a terrible fucking planner, because I think if there's one person you don't want to emotionally manipulate and then admit to it while you're still breathing, is the girl who can burn you alive with her mind.
Because they assume that because she's a child that she is naive and a little bit dumb, and that she's easily manipulated. It turns out she's not.
No, not at all. And also, it doesn't help when you shoot her fucking dad. So she just makes him into a flaming skeleton rather quickly, which makes the idea that he's alive in the sequel somewhat impossible.
Well, and again, not to keep harping on what is lost from the book, is she is devastated by Rainbird's betrayal. And because he was her only friend.
He's an island, a port in a storm, the only one who's engaging with her on any emotional level and showing her to be a human being.
Right. I was literally going to say the only person that treats her like a human being and not an experiment. And the movie barely touches on that.
It just doesn't deem it worthy.
He's basically just another bad guy that she has to check off a list.
Yes. And again, he hides from a girl who can start fires with her mind, and he hides behind a bale of hay.
I was going to say they had their in a horse barn.
And he's like, don't start a horse barn fire because they'll all burn up. And she's like, I can get these horses out of here pretty easily. Again, he is not a good planner.
No. Famously flame retardant horse barn.
I mean, it's a gambit, but a gambit he loses quite easily. Like, he just thinks that is a checkmate, and he is literally playing checkers, which makes me not like him as a character again. If you're telling me this character is so devious and smart, and then he makes super stupid moves, you're going to have to tell me why he be so stupid. And they just don't manage to do that. And in the end, he gets what he deserves, and also his entire backstory feels casually racist.
But it's like he gets what he deserved, but again, it feels hollow.
Yeah,
because we got about 25% of the malevolence that Rainbird shows in the book.
Yeah, and then I guess the only other version of a sort of father figure that we get is Martin Sheen, who's playing one gear down from the dead zone.
I was going to say, who? I barely remember his. I mean, obviously I just watched it, but like his character barely registers.
Yes. I don't know why he would say yes, because like, what would you get out of this other than a paycheck? It just,
like, I'll tell you something though. Have you ever seen the movie, The Little Girl Who Lives Down the Lane?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Now picture Martin Sheen at the end of that movie before, Jodie Foster poisons his ass, but that sort of, the smooth talking child molester.
Yeah.
Now, what if they might as well have given him the role of Rainbird. He wouldn't have been any less miscast than George C. Scott.
And he would have been a lot more convincing.
But he just turned that on again.
Right. I don't think the movie knows what to do with any of this material. And so.
No, but it shouldn't, but why not? It's not difficult.
I don't think they thought it was worthy of examination. The book says Firestarter. The movie's title is going to be Firestarter.
I was going to say, it's called Firestarter, not Andy and Charlie.
Right. And I think the movie just doesn't fucking care. I just thought of this. you want another example of how Rainbird is a terrible fucking planner, is that he shoots those Andy and Charlie with tranquilizers while they're walking on a long pier over a lake. And what is to keep either of them from just passing out in the water and drowning? Nothing. Luck. It's terrible fucking. Why not just wait until they're off the fucking pier, Gina? Oh, so stupid. Okay. I was about to say back to Cap Hollister, but he's not a fucking character. All he does is like yell occasionally and be gung-ho. And you're like, okay. And then in the movie, there's this whole like I'm pushing him, and he's afraid of snakes, and then he starts seeing snakes everywhere complex where he has psychic echoes that keep happening to him. So it's driving him insane. But
then it becomes like that bit in The Simpsons, cobras.
Right, exactly. I showed that episode of The Simpsons to my kid. He enjoyed it very much. I'm smiling ear to ear. We remembered something that's enjoyable in media, everybody.
I just think like there are so many, nobody wanted to go dark with this.
Yeah.
They should have gone dark.
Yes.
You've got a bit in the book where Andy managed to convince someone to stick their own arm in a garbage disposal. And again, that's another thing that like Andy has a vicious streak.
Yes. Because they've robbed him of an actual life.
They've driven him to it.
Yes.
But he gets to a point where he enjoys the pain that he inflicts on other people. And that in turn also robs him of his humanity.
Yeah. But they don't want to examine it. They don't want to dig into what feels like very fertile territory.
It's sort of like, I guess we have to have Andy as a character. No one's gonna buy this little girl being on the road by herself.
Yeah.
I'm honestly surprised they didn't just kill him off when Rainbird captures them at the cabin.
Yeah. But then you would have to explain that fire starting isn't Charlie's only psychic gift, which is something they introduce in the book, but only in that she can read people's general thoughts or a mood and whatnot. But that would add a tension to this. It would, if she could get people's mood and she's Rainbird kind of gives her I like him. He's doing all the right things, but deep down, I feel like there's something wrong, but I don't know what to believe. That's a whole thing you can work with, but the movie's not brave enough to do that. It just wants to tick off the boxes.
Yeah, exactly. It wants to make a movie about a little girl who can set fires.
Yeah. Again, this is not something I feel like we really need to break down all the plot points of, but I will say I do enjoy watching plantations burn down.
Oh yeah.
It's a fun thing that I enjoy. This was Orton Plantation, and then they built a semi recreation facade of it, like the burning house facade at the old Universal Studios Hollywood. But I still get to see a version of it burn down, and I really like that. I
mean, I do like seeing assholes in cheap suits get blown up.
Yes.
Especially if they're crying right beforehand. That's fun.
Yes, begging for their lives as they realize how fucking wrong they were. And that is satisfying to a degree, but I also don't know that it makes a movie. And this movie just is too slight for me.
Yeah, like I said, I think on its most basic level, it's fine. Mm-hmm. But there's so much of what makes, to me, the book a much more compelling read that they just left out.
Yeah.
And I think that if you're going to do it, you need to go dark. You need to make it at the same level, like, the kind of road movie that like The Road is.
Yeah. I mean, even King himself is he called it one of the worst of the bunch and dubbed it, quote, flavorless.
Yeah, I would say that he's sometimes a little more generous.
Yeah.
Than the rest of us, but I think he's pretty on the money with that one.
Yeah.
I'm not mad. I'm disappointed.
Yeah. I would quote this one writer, Colin Greenland, in a review. I don't think it was a contemporaneous review, but after the fact. And he said, quote, I suspect the story was ruined before it ever got to the actors. It was spoiled by oversimplification and the surgical removal of all of King's narrative intelligence. Yes, guilty as charged. Like, it's just relying on special effects to make the experience worthwhile.
Oversimplified is a really good word to describe it. Yes. It's like they and what I was trying to say before is you've had a lot of these horror adaptations that seemed very uninterested in addressing the greater themes that the book was trying to address, which is like, well, the horror fans aren't coming to see that. It's like, well, get some fucking credit. They might be, it's like.
I was trying to read everything that's on the poster. This is one of those posters where it's multiple paragraphs.
Oh, like 16 candles. Yeah. Oh, I love that. You don't see those anymore.
She has the power to set objects afire with just one glance. It's a power she does not want. It's a power she cannot control. And each night Charlie prays to be just like every other child. But there are those who will do everything in their power to find her, control her, ... or destroy her. Charlie McGee is Stephen King's Firestarter. Will she have the power ... to survive?
Yeah, you don't need two ellipses in one poster.
It's a lot. It's a whole fucking post. It's a current Twitter post sized rumination on the idea of Firestarter. I wish it was great because it's not an acting problem in terms of you got bad actors. It's just that no one really wanted to engage with the material, and it shows.
Yeah, you just come away from it being like, all right,
watch the Fury.
Go little girl.
Yeah, watch the Fury.
Yeah, it's not nearly. It's watching George C. Scott get blown up isn't nearly as satisfying as watching John Cassavetes get blown up.
Yes, and he also doesn't look good in his indigenous garb.
No. But also John Cassavetes does a better job of being that sort of seductive, I know you think I'm the bad guy, but I really just want to be your friend. Kind of like he does that so much better. And
we see the cost of that manipulation on both sides of those teenagers. Like you feel the emotional cost of being used by either side of that coin to get what they want. And it slowly turns them into monsters who will do terrible things to people. But those people have brought those costs on their own head. Again, watch the fucking Fury. It's so good. At every other, there are tons of directors who could be bashed with the boilerplate. You're not as good of a visual stylist and director as Brian De Palma. He's rare, but I don't think Lester does himself any particular favors here. This is just,
it's a very workman-like effort.
Yeah. Anything else before we choose our own Deathventure?
I mean, if you need to be a completist, it's probably, I think that I would say that King calling one of the worst is probably a little harsh.
No, they're far worse.
It's very inessential.
It's and I just think it makes me angry that it doesn't do anything with the material.
If it compels you to read the book, good. Because I do think I think I hold the book in slightly higher esteem than Patrick. I think it's a good little read.
I don't doubt that. I haven't revisited it since the 90s. So I'm ill-equipped to give my, in-depth read on it. But I believe you. Probably because Stephen King does interiority really, really well. Billy Summers notwithstanding. Oh, Gina, Billy Summers.
I had not read that one yet.
Ooh,
And maybe I guess I never will.
Some people liked it. I'd say just read a Jack Reacher novel because that's what he's trying to do.
I'm not a huge fan of his mystery writing, so I've tended to avoid most of those.
Yeah, it's just not the flavor of his 31 flavors of ice cream that I personally enjoy. So it's not a knock on it, but the man has given us so much to ingest and read and enjoy that it's not crazy that he's going to come up with one vein of his literature that's just not going to fire on all the same cylinders for every single person. It's not bad. It's not a wrong thing. It's just what it is for us. It's our problem, not his. What's also our problem is firing up another Choose Your Own Deathventure. And that's where we decide of all the explosions that happen to human beings in this movie. If you were forced to die that way, which one would it be? And why? First up to bid, we have claw your own fucking eyes out.
Mm-mm.
Now, we don't see how the other people die, but it's a variation of the same thing. Like they are either their brains are turned to soup, or you could be tortured to death and laid out on an ironing board for some fucking reason. This scare is straight out of The Boy Next Door, Gina.
That actually is in the book, I believe.
Okay. Well, you know what? The man's giving me nightmares. This just isn't one of them. Then you can go into category of burned alive, or you could go into the category of blown up, or you can get karate chopped to the face. You can be strangled by battery cables, car battery cables. You can get shot in the head or you can get shot in the throat. And that's pretty much the sum total of the variations. I mean, a lot of people burn up alive and a lot of people get blown up. And then a couple little individual things here and there. So what say you, Gina?
I think I'm just going to be like, because this is completely plausible for me. I'm just going to be some, poor secretary working for the shop inside the building as it gets blown up.
Right.
Probably doing some overtime, waiting for a fax to go through.
Sure. Or just banging something out on the teletype to go to Langley.
Just thump it on the microwave, waiting for my lean cuisine to heat up.
Right, because you're on the night shift. No,
exactly.
It makes complete sense. I'm going to go with karate chopped in the face.
Yeah, that happened pretty quickly.
He is there 1 second and gone the next. So I enjoy that component.
Yeah, and you're in bed, you're in your jammies.
Right, I'm very comfortable. My last thought is, who dare? And then you're
going to say, you have to see George C. Scott's mug is the last thing you see, but
seen worse. What are you going to do? But don't worry, folks. Josh Hollis does all of our artwork. Go to joshhollis.com for that sort of thing. Go to Revenge Body Memphis at bandcamp.com for this theme and all of our remixes. Find us on social media on Blue Sky, Instagram, Threads, Facebook. We have a special exclusive Facebook group if you still Facebook. That's a lot of fun. And of course, our Patreon, where we do bonus episodes for you thrice a month. We do Q&As, we do bonus episodes and movie commentaries and trailer commentaries that are exclusive to you for supporting us. And we also have the t-shirt shop, which will have new t-shirts forthcoming. Currently, we have the My Vital Juices t-shirt that you should absolutely buy, and the paperback version of our Stephen King artwork, which will look great on your chest, no matter its shape, size, or narrowness. Gina, where can people find you on these here internets?
I write about movies and pop culture on my newsletter, GinaWatchesThings.ghost.io, and I am here and there on social media under Gina Does Things.
Do it today, people. Check it out. Don't worry, the body count will continue for myself and for Ms. Radcliffe. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
They're all gonna laugh at you.
A mochi moment from Tara, who writes, For years, all my doctor said was eat less and move more, which never worked. But you know what does? The simple eating tips from my nutritionist at Mochi. And after losing over 30 pounds, I can say you're not just another GLP-1 source. You're a life source. Thanks, Tara. I'm Myra Ahmed, founder of Mochi Health. To find your Mochi moment, visit joinmochi.com.
Tara is a Mochi member compensated for her story.